So in Revelation 14, we're reintroduced to the 144,000. We saw them back in chapter 7. Show notes will link to the video there, but I argue there that the 144,000 is a symbolic number that means the entire multitude of all of God's people throughout time. And it's juxtaposed with that literal number and then the multitude beyond count of every tribe, tongue, nation, and language back in chapter 7. We're going to dive into that even more today to talk about why that is the case, why this number is a symbolic number that all of us who have trusted in Jesus can count ourselves among. To do that, we're going to do a little running head start. We've looked at the beast and the anti-trinity and the mark of the beast in the last couple videos. We're going to do that again slightly because John is directly juxtaposing the mark of the beast, 666, with those that are sealed by God, the 144,000, and the difference between being another number and being marked with the name of God is really significant. So let's Revelation 13:15 through 14:5. And it, the beast, was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak, and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Then I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the roar of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins, and it is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as firstfruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie is found, for they are blameless. All right, so today we're diving again into this famous number 144,000 and kind of unpacking their identity. And before we do that, there's this very clear contrast and comparison with the chapter right before. We covered chapter 13 in the last several videos, but there's a clear flow from one to the other. There's those who have the mark of the beast on their forehead, this number 666. And then there's those who have the name of God written on their forehead. And they're really intentionally set back to back. And so just a quick review, but one of the most compelling ways to understand this for me is really there's 2 groups of people in the world. Those that have worshiped the mark of the beast and those that have worshiped God and have the name written on their forehead. And I love just this idea that in this economy, in this empire of the beast, if you worship the beast, you just become another number. You're a cog in the wheel, this grand machine that's churning. But it's a very stark difference to those who have the name of God written on their forehead. It's this personal name. We are called children of God. We're not just another cog in the wheel. So we won't belabor this first half. Let's talk about the identity of this 144,000. You can go back to my previous video on Revelation chapter 7, where we first meet the 144,000. But there, as here, this number is not meant to be a literal number. It's not an actual number of 144,000. This is a number that means symbolically the entire universal people of God. And so, I mean, even just the way we get that, it's 12 times 12 times 10 to the third. There's this, like, symbolically, this is like the 12 tribes of Israel times the 12 apostles, and then multiplied by 1,000. And so you're just saying, like, what's a number that could symbolically encapsulate the entire people of God? And I'm convinced that this is a number that it's not just a specific number of people in a small sliver of the end times who are going to be saved. It's not just Israelites. It's actually people from the whole multitude of every tribe, tongue, people, language. That shows up in Revelation 7, where the 144,000 is directly parallel with the great multitude that no one can count from every tribe, tongue, nation, and language. And it's the same thing here. let's talk about, we get a little more depth of the description of this group. And so this is the 144,000 who have received the name of God on their foreheads. This goes all the way back to Deuteronomy, God talking about placing his word on their foreheads. It goes and then into the church as well. This is ancient Israelites from the Hebrew Bible, the church age, the modern age, all the way through. Every people of God is kind of wrapped up into this number. And so John, again, is revisiting with this number. He hears a voice from heaven like a roar of many waters, a sound of loud thunder, and it's just this cacophony of voices that are singing this song to God. And this is a louder noise than just a mere 144,000 people would make. So this is another reason why I think this is meant to be read symbolically, not like a code to be broken. They're singing this new song. We've seen that before in the book. And they're wrapped up into this great worship of God. No one could learn this song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. So then we get into some of the description of who these people are. It says that they are not defiled, they are virgins, they follow the Lamb wherever he goes, they have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits for God, and in their mouth no lie was found. They are blameless. A lot of these images are symbols for God's people throughout Scripture. And so, like virginal, this is, again, I don't think we're supposed to be reading this as if this is a literal 144,000 male virgins who are now following the Lamb. This is a description of the entire church. And actually, throughout the Old Testament and New Testament, this image of virgin is used to talk about the purity of God's people, that we're not defiled, we're not worshiping other gods, we're not rebelling against God. God talks about marrying Israel as his bride, his pure virginal bride. And so there's a bunch of prophets that you could talk to in Amos and Jeremiah. There's these cries, "O Virgin Israel." But it actually goes beyond just the Hebrew Bible into the New Testament, places like 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2, where Paul himself talks about wanting to present the church as a virgin to Christ. There's this image through the Old Testament and the New Testament of God marrying his people. And so God's people are like a bride waiting for the bridegroom. And that is taken up in Jesus' teachings and in Revelation itself. It's headed toward the end of the story. In Revelation, where is that, 21, 2, finally talks about the church coming down as a bride, ready for her husband. And so all of this is kind of wrapped up into this powerful image to say, what does it mean to be a part of the 144,000? Those who have been sealed by Christ, have the name of God written on our foreheads. We're supposed to be undefiled by the ways of this world. Earlier in chapter 13, if you remember, the nations of the earth were defiling themselves by prostituting themselves to the whore of Babylon. And so now we're getting the same sort of image. It's probably, you can take this literally and say what it means is that we shouldn't defile ourselves with women, but you can also take it symbolically, which is probably more overreaching to say that we are also not supposed to be defiled by giving ourselves into the ways of the world. So we've been redeemed. We're following God as these pure virgin Israel, virgin church. We are the first fruits for God and the Lamb. That's another clear reference to several moments in the scriptures. Jeremiah, the prophets say that a lot. And then there's one psalm that was really jumping out at me. Psalm 15, verse 2, talk about the righteous who follow God. And in there, it specifically references the righteous are those who walk blameless and speak the truth. And here, again, it seems like a reference there. Like, what does it mean to be among the 144,000? We're like virgins who are undefiled by the ways of the world. We follow the Lamb wherever he goes. We are redeemed from mankind as the first fruits for God and the Lamb. And we walk blameless and truthful. And so there's this great call at the end. And again, I and many other commentators agree. There's obviously many ways to read this, much more literally, as if this is 144,000 Israelites. But this passage, especially connecting it with chapter 7, has convinced me that this is a symbolic number for the entire people of God throughout all of time, and it's a description of what it means to follow God, in contrast to the ways of the world who follow the beast and take his number on their forehead.